You're listening to Media Monitor, where we break down what's happening in the media and the advertising industry and tell you what it actually means.
Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
I'm all right. Excited to start another week talking all things media on Media Monitor. So
Me too.
we got a lot to talk about.
Exactly. And I thought we would do things a little differently this week as compared to our first few episodes. In our previous episodes, we've gone deep on topics. And this week, we're going to do a little bit of a review of some headlines. I figured it'd be some media morsels, a guideline grab bag, if you will.
Grab bag,
How does that sound?
Both, again, this is 2 weeks in a row now that you've dropped some pretty sick alliteration. So kudos to you. Although I'm blanking because I listened to last week's episode and I can't remember if it's alliteration or assonance, right? That's the other one where it's like a consonant versus a vowel. I'm probably going too deep in the weeds. Sorry. I know that one of those, either this week or last week, is a mistake. Either way, love it. Love morsels.
Catch that on Sean's Literary Learnings podcast.
My spinoff, where I just confuse terms and then just really set everyone astray in terms of grammar.
Well, let's focus on what you do know about, and that's this industry.
It's not that. Yeah.
So here's what I thought we would talk about this week. Publicis announced their Q4 earnings.
Killing it.
They're killing it. We want to talk about what that might mean for the industry. Then, of course, we have to talk about the Olympics officially kicking off, the Winter Olympics.
By the way, found out today, very disappointed, there's already some events that they're done. The gold medals are out, they're handed out. I was shocked when I saw like the, and you know what, no spoiler alerts. No spoiler alerts. There's already some gold out there. And I was like, oh. I was getting excited for tonight's opening ceremonies. I guess while everyone's listening to this, probably last week's opening ceremony. But, I was genuinely surprised when I started to see medal counts. And I was like, oh, I guess they've started officially.
Well, you might talk about something related to that when we get to this topic with respect to the volume of content that is
so
out
much
there.
Content.
So let's see. And then we'll round it out with the big game, as I'm told we're supposed to refer to it.
Of course.
And but this week we're going to do something a little different and not talk about the ads, talk about something else. Yeah. So
morsels.
Without further ado, I will jump into Publicis. So according to Media Post, Publicis Groupe ended 2025 on a strong note with fourth quarter net organic revenue growth of 5.9%. It surpassed growth expectations for the full year, achieving 5.6 net organic growth. And the firm upgraded its guidance when it reported third quarter results to between 5 and 5.5. So Publicis is doing really well. That's super exciting. It means people potentially are being a little less cautious about spending, within their book. I'd love to hear your take on what this means for the industry as a whole. So what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to probably give an unsatisfactory answer and say this is great news for Publicis. I don't know if we could really fairly read into the industry at large or what's happening with holdcos by just looking at Publicis. One, I would say Publicis has had an extraordinary streak of late of winning new business, growing their existing accounts on all pages is doing really well. And then on the flip side, I think there's a lot of narrative of like what's going to happen on the holdcos. And I think this is one of those examples of like a Rorschach test. You're going to see whatever it is that you think about the future for holdcos in Publicis' numbers. If you think that the holdco is doomed as we know it, you're going to dig deep and find things like margin compression or like less operating budget operating margins, whatever it might be. And on the flip side, if you think that the holdcos will be here forever, you're going to point to Publicis clearly has a path forward on how they're doing really well. And I think both are true, right? I think the holdco as we know it that became popularized, I would argue probably in like the mid 90s. Of this kind of like one-stop shop. You've got creative, you've got placement. They can kind of help you with tech stacks. Anything you can imagine, holdcos kind of got into and were like a consultant light model or maybe like a consultant within kind of a media industry vibe. I would say that framing is probably challenged for the future. And it's about evolution, right? I think we're starting to see some of that within kind of the direction that Publicis is going. But I would just give kind of two high level stats to point to more of a trended analysis that I think gives us better clarity to the future. And also is a little bit underlying in terms of that five and some points growth for Publicis is one, if you look at holdco trajectory over time, for the last 20 years or so, they've basically grown revenue at about 2% average every single year. And revenue, with notable exception, Great Recession, a little bit of pullback during the pandemic. But overall, revenue for the holdcos has continued to grow. And so they're kind of every year set a record level revenue. On the flip side, though, over that same time frame, operating margins hovered around like 18% back in the mid-aughts of like how much money were they actually able to bring in after expenses, all these things. But at the same time, over that same period, you're now looking at most holdcos coming in around 14% for that same measure. So it means
Wow.
even though they're bringing in more money overall, less is staying within the holdcos. And I think there's some industry challenges that holdcos are still wrestling with. For example, we saw a pretty significant drop off in operating revenue starting in like 2017, 2016, as DSPs, programmatic ad buying really started to accelerate, because that's when we also started to see an acceleration to a lot of business being brought in house. You could hire someone pretty much like fairly junior and have them come in and kind of say, this is my ad campaign, go out and bid on some ads, and then programmatic kind of does the work for you. But also the holdcos work with programmatic DSPs. And so part of it is then you're doing the same billing, but the DSPs have a take rate. So like ultimately for every dollar that you bill, you're actually getting less and less of it. I would say that's a big part of what is happening. And we've seen some kind of moves within the holdcos to try to bring the DSPs in closer, negotiate better rates, all of these things, right? Which I think is all smart directions. But yeah, I would say there are some structural challenges that are happening that even though more revenue continues to flow in, right, less revenue is staying within the four walls of the holdcos for a variety of reasons. Also some creative elements, et cetera, that, not really warranted for the podcast today. But my take on Publicis is congrats Publicis on what has been an amazing run and continues to be really good. But I would say that that's like a unique Publicis thing. And then on the flip side, I think the call of like holdcos are a dying breed is also kind of silly, right? There's a million different reasons why it's much easier to outsource your media buying, selling, and creative to experts, and then you stick to doing whatever you do best: make widgets, sell hot dogs, whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we're seeing that. You're making me feel like we probably need a whole episode on programmatic because as someone who back in 2016, 17 worked at a programmatic company when it was kind of just really kicking off, so much has changed. I need to
So
update
much.
my knowledge.
And it is so wildly complicated. I mean, I've been in media adjacent fields for the better part of, let's call it, 10 years. I'm still not entirely clear about how programmatic works. Despite like being, fairly close to it over the years, it is probably one of the more complicated areas of our industry. I think partly by design, partly by tech, and partly by a whole number of things, but it almost functions similar to magic. But yeah, I think maybe there's a programmatic episode sometime in our near future.
All right, I'm logging that one. So I guess with that, maybe we pivot over to the Olympics. As you
Yeah,
mentioned, they're officially kicking off today, as in with the respect to, the torches will be carried, the opening ceremonies will happen. However, medals have already been given. But let's talk about the Olympics from the perspective of how it impacts our industry. I'm probably going to ask you about your favorite Olympic sport because I have to,
of course.
but, you know, start where you want to start.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about the eye-popping amount of ad revenue that the Olympics brings in?
Tell me, educate me, Sean.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this is not a surprise that it brings in a good amount of money. It's kind of a big deal globally, but it's interesting. So, kind of globally all in, what I was kind of reading was about The Olympics generates about $6 billion in revenue. Now that's advertising, it's people traveling to Milan, it's hotel stay, all these things that are generating specifically to the IOC, not like Milan as a
And
benefactor.
is that specifically the Winter Olympics, or is that
It's an average.
okay?
Yeah, it's an average. So obviously like an eye-popping amount of like small country level GDP on a singular event. So big deal.
You understand why companies build where countries build
Yeah.
entire stadiums to support this, because the ROI is there.
Yeah. So it's this massive event, and specifically related to advertising. We've seen these numbers continue to climb year after year after year after year. This year will probably close somewhere in the ballpark of 2 billion. But if you look back, the last Olympics 2 years ago came in at about 1.9 billion, and then the one before that was about 1.25. So there's these massive numbers in terms of just overall ad revenue associated with it. But I thought what was more interesting for this stat today is it's almost a silly comparison. And why I say that is I was curious. Not a sponsor, just kind of a commentary, but like Peacock is the exclusive streamer in the United States for, kind of what you can view in terms of the Olympics. But when you go onto the platform, you can actually just watch whatever sport you want for however long you want. So if you're a big curling stan, you can literally just stream every qualifier, excuse me, everything related to curling, gold, whatever. This is also a prelude to what my favorite sports
I
are.
was just about to ask. It
Yeah.
seems like maybe someone has spent some
Yeah.
time on that
Yeah.
dedicated channel.
Well, it's one of those that like, as a fairly out of shape dude, I feel like I could probably get in good enough shape to try curling, less so for, say, Olympic skiing at this point in my life. Again, maybe I'm overestimating my athletic abilities, but that's just my take. But
I
yeah,
get it.
so you look, and for the last Olympics, there was roughly 7,000 total hours of programming in the Paris Olympics. And that's everything from like shoulder programming, the stuff that kind of comes before and after an event, interviews, mini documentaries, the actual events themselves, both the gold, but then also all the leading up qualifiers. We're expected to eclipse that number for Milan in terms of in-depth. Now you go back to the Atlanta Games, mid 90s. Really kind of old school. You could watch it on TV and TV alone. That only had 172 hours of programming.
Wow. Wait, so you're saying it's gone from 172 to 7,000?
And probably more this year. That was 7,000 for Paris. And they've
For
added
Paris.
more bells, whistles, all of these things. So when you're talking about ad revenue, like, yes, ad revenue has grown an eye-popping amount. But if you think about just ads and where they can be placed, there's now 7,000 hours plus of places ads can show up. Back in the mid 90s, there was 172 hours worth of places where you could stick commercials. So I think a lot of the comparison of how much ad revenue has grown can't be decoupled from just how much programming has revolved around the Olympics to become really super unique in terms of coverage. World Cup is probably the only thing that's closer in terms of coverage, and probably at a global level, not just the United States, but globally, probably eclipses the Olympics. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else that even comes remotely close in terms of just sheer programming hours related to a main event.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think really interesting perspective for our listeners.
Absolutely. Hopefully.
So curling it is. That's your favorite?
That's the pick. How about you?
Oh, Sean, I was hoping you would ask.
Of
It's
course.
definitely figure skating, and there's one reason, and it's a very obvious one. It started in 1994. Do you remember?
Tara Lipinski?
Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. How could you
Yes.
forget? I mean, of
Sorry.
course, as a young girl, I was captivated by the beauty of it, their outfits, the grace, the elegance, right?
Yeah.
But this was like a made-for-TV movie, and then later became
It did, yeah.
movies. I mean, I think this was Margot Robbie's been in multiple movies now. This is the only one she got nominated for Best Actress, Tanya.
I thought you were going to say it's the only one that you watched.
No. Big Margot Robbie fan.
Of course.
So, yeah, I mean, figure skating. And I'll say I even being a California born and raised, we don't really have a lot of ice skating here. You
It's
could
country, yeah.
you could do it, but I took like roller skating class, like
Okay,
on roller skates. Like this was the closest I could get. I took like lessons because
interesting.
I wanted to try to emulate.
Yeah, I went ice skating once in my adult life, and in about a minute and 30 seconds, I sprayed my wrist.
Oh.
Yeah, I think ice should just stay ice. It's slippery for a reason. There's no reason you to be out there. There's no reason to be on it. Um, Although I say that, but something that I think is super cool, not that I would have the courage for it, is the skeleton, and that's just straight ice.
What I don't know what the skeleton is.
Oh, you're like a human missile. It's literally you go down a giant track that's made of ice face first, and you hit like 70 miles
Wow.
an hour. Apologies to our international listeners. I'm really bad at conversion to kilometers. But you rip, and like there's like one small move and it's over. It's a wild sport.
That's not for me.
Yeah.
That is not for
No.
me.
You are the ice skate at that point.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. Should check it out.
I think I will. I'm sure
Yeah.
now that I know that there's this focused coverage, I can go in depth.
I'm sure you could probably find some sort of like documentary on all of the rules and history of it in terms of depth of coverage. I'm sure it's out there that you can just like, or like a YouTube explainer for probably half an hour, and then you'll be an expert.
Oh my God. Well, man, I guess keeping in our theme of talking about sports, we got to talk about the big game.
Yeah.
And
Wild weekend, just back to back to back. Pretty monster weekend when it comes to sports.
we're going to be glued to our TVs.
For sure.
And, it's been fun. We had the NFL honors ceremony last night here in San Francisco at the Palace of Fine Arts. John Hamm hosted. So my husband and I have been taking extra walks outside to see who's, popping into the House of Prime Rib near where we live, because they're everywhere. The celebrities are just walking these San Francisco streets.
Have you ran into anyone that's
We-
worth noting?
Nothing so far, but
No?
I mean, we've got time, right? Like
It's fair.
we've got tonight, we've got tomorrow. It's going to
It sounds like you're really going to try. So good luck to you.
Yeah. But so I know we've already spent some time talking a little bit about ads. And for most people, ads and the game itself are kind of like the main events. I think the close third is, of course, the halftime show. Who's
Yeah.
performing? What's going on? And so the big news this week is that, as reported in the New York Times, Turning Point USA, the advocacy group founded by Charlie Kirk, is presenting a streamed concert that will go up against Bad Bunny's performance at the Super Bowl. And it got me thinking, maybe we should take a walk down memory lane and explore some other examples of, halftime show rivals in history, because this isn't the first time. This has actually happened a lot. And it definitely is something that can pull eyeballs away. So what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, right. I think the notion of counter-programming is nothing new. And I think it's, tried and true way to use the press coverage and intensity around all things Super Bowl, big game, to kind of just use that as a way to also then be part of that PR strategy. But at a high level, there's the Puppy Bowl that has been around forever. That was kind of like a classic, and also that had worked, right, in terms of like actually was able to siphon off viewers ever so slightly, and kind of like grow to be its own phenomenon that now like people have come to kind of love. But that started as like a counter programming of like, what do we do? What if we just stick puppies live for a long time? And it's like, yeah, I'll watch that, right? So that's one example. And then if you go back to the early 90s, Fox, as a way to kind of counter program against the Super Bowl, launched kind of a live special of In Living Color, which again was an attempt to say, hey, if you're not into the Super Bowl, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was maybe Gloria Estefan that was
That's
the
right.
halftime performer at that point, and kind of pulled a good chunk of viewers off for a few minutes to kind of go and watch the special. So again, I think the hype, the buzz, the breathless coverage about it doesn't really match both kind of the history of this has kind of been a thing for a while. And also, there's still expected to be over 120 million people watching this thing in the US alone. You're talking about basically like half of the country's population watching a singular event. Kid Rock is not going to kind of move those numbers. So I think, again, it's like a good PR strategy that has a basis in history in terms of attempts before. But I think I, for one, will be tuning in for the commercials, maybe check a little bit of Bad Bunny, but definitely there for the commercials, both for a industry interest and then just in general, kind of curious to see how some land. I am old enough to be a little disappointed that I can watch most of them today on YouTube. And I've also started to see a lot of them in my LinkedIn feed. I'm old enough to kind of like to be surprised and just show up for the game and see something new for the first time. But I'm trying to avoid any spoilers and only consume on day of.
Yeah, it almost makes me feel like someone needs to create a no spoilers product because the amount of things that you have to avoid to not figure out.
You just have to unplug. Yeah, you have to like literally not exist on the internet going into some of these events.
It's wild. And there are things that I find out that I didn't even know that I wanted to find out or could find out. And all of a sudden there's an ad and it's in a quick summary, reel from a news publication, and it's spoiled for me. So
it's fair.
I'm with you. I've been trying to avoid watching the ads. I've seen a few, but I'm excited to tune in.
Yeah. Any plans for Sunday?
We're going to make some chili. As we always do. And we're going to sit, this is where I rub it in. We will be watching on our deck outside. We don't have an outside TV. We're not that fancy, but we bought a really cheap one that we bring outside. And
for events or just for this one? Other things? Yeah, sure. No, I thought this was like a legit, like we went out to buy a TV just to watch the Super Bowl outside.
No, this was a Prime Day.
Yeah,
Grab that thing, and then if it gets destroyed, it gets destroyed. But
fair.
If you need it, you got it.
Yeah. Wheel it out like it's a substitute teacher in the mid 90s.
No, I mean
wheel it
this
back
thing
on its cart.
Wheel it like this thing you could pick up with one hand.
This is true. This is true. It is embarrassing. I have many TVs in this house that are over the lifespan of like 20 years. Like the ones from 20 years ago, despite being smaller, are like, all right, I need a second person to help me out with this, versus the newest one we got it's like twice the size and it barely requires me to carry it. It's just wild on just how you? Like light. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have two small kids. It's right in prime time of their bedtime, so I'll probably try to catch maybe the halftime and then maybe a few the commercials post half, but probably a lot of times more so just reading stories and getting two small kids down to bed.
Yeah, West Coast viewing of the Super Bowl can't be beat. It's a lot more fun to kick off at 3. Time
zones, crazy.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for us today. We've done our media morsels, our guideline grab bag. If you have a better name, let us know.
Yeah.
Send us a message because that's the best we could do. But thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend. That's Media Monitor. Follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts every Wednesday for a new episode. And as always, thanks for listening.